After a few print editions and a short winter break, we are back. What's up, hockey fans, and welcome back down to ice level for the first episode of 2025. As always, I'm your host, James Blennau. A lot has happened since the last time we spoke, but this episode will focus exclusively on what happened over the past week in the news cycle. So without further ado, let's dig into this heap of information. Let's get started with the Ice Level Lowdown. The American Hockey Coaches Association, or AHCA, is announcing its 2025 award winners. Headlining this year's class is former Western Michigan head coach Andy Murray, earning the John Maxine Award for Lifetime Achievement within the sport. Murray coached Team Canada in IIHF competitions, winning World Championship gold medals 3 times and 6 at the Spengler Cup. UConn took home their first Connecticut Ice Tournament trophy on Saturday night at the Martiri Family Arena at Sacred Heart. The Huskies, ranked 13th at the time in the USCHO Poll, improved their record to 14-8-2, including a ranked win over number 15 Quinnipiac on a last-second heartbreaker goal on Friday. Hobey Baker Award nominees are out and voting is open for finalists as of Wednesday. The award is given to the best player throughout college hockey, like the Heisman Trophy in football. Players from across the country and conferences are represented, including stars like Michigan's Michael Hage, Boston College's Gabe Perreault, and Denver's Zeev Boyum. Voting closes for this round on March 9th at midnight, with the top 10 released on March 19th. Fan voting contributes to a percentage of each round's selections. Game of the week this week. How do you even choose one? There were some awesome games at the CT Ice Tournament, but keep your eyes peeled for those later this week because I'll have some content on that. BC and BU played part of their series this week, which will also be featured later on in this episode. Too many Big Ten games went so close that I can't even pick one or the other. Now this week's going to feature 2 teams fighting for the spotlight in an extremely competitive conference. It's Friday nights, number 7 Providence at number 12 UMass Lowell game. In the first period, just under 4 minutes after an onslaught of Friar shots, Tanner Adams redirected one from the blue line and quieted the Songus center as PC went up 1-0. In that same 10-minute span, Logan Will would fire one in off the face-off and make it 2-0 Friars. But just a few minutes later, Pearson Brandon would put the Riverhawks on the board, and Lee Parks snuck in another just 12 seconds later. The second period was more of the same, and boy was this a thriller in Lowell. Alexei Kivioya brought the lead back to PC for a short bit on a cross crease with 17 to go. Just a minute after that, Chris Delaney tied it for the Hawks on the power play. That score would hold not just for the rest of the second, but also the third and overtime, sending it to a shootout. Dylan Bentley scored the only shootout goal, and Benny Halaz held the Friars scoreless. The Riverhawks earned the extra point in the Hockey East, with Ian Carpentier picking up 2 apples for the home side, and Ben Meehan blocking 4 shots from the Friars in the win as well. Upset Uproar this week takes us to upstate New York. The Route 11 rivalry delivered this weekend as, despite the split, St. Lawrence took down number 20 Clarkson on the road at Shield Arena in Potsdam in a tight 2-1 win, holding off a late Golden Knights rally. With goals in the first period to tie and eventually win it from Jan Lashak and Isaac Bandu, the Skating Saints defense held back a strong ECAC hockey opponent for nearly 2.5 periods. Despite the 7 total penalties throughout, including St. Lawrence's Evan Orloff's tripping call late in the third, neither team scored on the man advantage. Lashak blocked 3 shots, and Saints goaltender Mason Kaczynski didn't allow any goals past the first 6 minutes. St. Lawrence also blocked 12 shots as a team across 60 minutes. The best part, though, the Saints were a combined 2-8-1 in conference play before this. Rivalries, man. You gotta throw the whole season out the window during those games. Just ask Ohio State football. As always, our first stop on the cross-conference highlight hub takes us to Atlantic Hockey America. Niagara's offense absolutely exploded this weekend in the series against RIT. In 2 games, the Purple Eagles combined for 13 goals while only allowing 3? What? Well, when the games go 7-0 and 6-3 respectively, you ought to earn a spot in this segment. Niagara's Trevor Hoskins scored a goal and added 5 assists to his point total for the weekend. Jay Ahern scored 2 goals and 2 assists, but most importantly, Goalie Pierce Charlson saved 60 of the 63 shots he faced, including a shutout on Friday night. After a slate of conference games and quite a few series splits, let's check out the standings. In first place, it's Sacred Heart with 41 points, followed by Niagara with 38 and Bentley with 37. Holy Cross follows them with 36, Army with 32, and a big drop-off to Canisius with 26. Air Force has 25, Robert Morris with 22, AIC with 20, and RIT and Mercyhurst round us out with 12 and 11 points in the Atlantic Hockey America. In the Super Big Ten, because there were so few conference games and so many great ones, we're going to take a look at all of the series. Number 2 Michigan State hosted number 4 Minnesota, and boy did that series produce some Game of the Week candidates. In Game 1, Sparty came out on top in a dominant 9-3 win, never allowing the Gophers to lead. David Gacciardi scored 2 goals, Daniel Russell added the goal and 2 assists, and Isaac Howard scored 2 goals with 1 assist. Game 2 is definitely not more of the same though, as this one went back and forth mostly in the second period, but regulation and overtime, including Jimmy Snuggerud's 2 goals, weren't enough to win it for Minnesota. Trey Augustine stayed perfect through 2 rounds as Isaac Howard and Daniel Russell got past Liam Soulier in a disappointing weekend for Minnesota, but a massive point swing for Michigan State. Number 10 Michigan headed to Madison to take on Wisconsin and sort of split the series, losing the first game 5-4, and earning the extra shootout point and a 4-4 draw in the second. Tyson Dix scored a goal and had 2 assists for the Badgers on the weekend as one of their top scorers, and TJ Hughes scored 2 goals with 2 assists for the Wolverines. Penn State hosted number 9 Ohio State, earning 1 extra point from a shootout and winning another in overtime to pull off a close upset. Danny Geniev scored 2 goals and added an assist across the 2 games for the Nittany Lions, while Riley Thompson kept the Buckeyes in it with 2 goals of his own over the 2 games. With some major series and shakeups this weekend, let's see where the teams stand this week. Michigan State leads the pack with 37 points and 16 played, followed by Minnesota with 32 and the same amount played. Ohio State follows them with 25, Wisconsin close behind them in 24, and Michigan not too far back either with 22 points. At the bottom of the table, there are Penn State and Notre Dame, both tied with 11 points. In the CCHA, there was an absolute stunner this weekend, and this team has been due for a major win recently. Ferris State rallied in front of the home crowd to beat number 14 Minnesota State 2-0, stunning the Mason Cup hopefuls. Despite the series split, the Bulldogs still performed well on Friday night, with Taylor Schleppe assisting on both goals and Noah West saving 38 of 38 Maverick shots. Now let's see where Minnesota State and company land in this week's standings after the top team was toppled. The Mavericks still retain their spot in first place with a 704 points percentage, followed by Augustana with a 667, and Michigan Tech was at 630. Bowling Green is in fourth with a 574. Lake Superior State follows them with a flat 500. St. Thomas with a 463. Bemidji State with a 444. And rounding us out are Ferris State with a 389 and Northern Michigan with a 204 points percentage. In ECAC hockey, oh boy, do I wish I could show you all the brawl at the end of Cornell and Dartmouth, but unfortunately these episodes are audio only. In other ECAC hockey news, Union won the 2025 Mayor's Cup in Albany against rivals RPI 3-2. Nate Hanley scored the overtime winner for the Garnet Chargers in a Saturday night thriller, while Josh Nixon added the other 2 for the eventual winners. This win also marked Union's 4th straight season winning the trophy. After a weekend of rivalries and tension, let's see where the teams stand on their journey to Lake Placid in this week's standings. Quinnipiac still leads the pack with 28 points, followed by Dartmouth with 25, Clarkson with 24, and Colgate with 23. Just behind them are Union and Harvard tied with 21, Cornell with a surprising 19, Yale with 14, Brown with 13, RPI with 12, Princeton with 11, and St. Lawrence with 11 to round out the 12 teams in ECAC hockey. In the Hockey East, you'll have to hold off a bit to hear about the Battle of Commonwealth Avenue, and since we already spoke about UConn, Lowell, and Providence, let's just run through the rest of the results from the conference. UMass swept Alaska, hanging 11 goals on the Nanooks across 2 games, with Lucas Mercury scoring 3 goals and an assist for the Minutemen, and Chase Defoe adding 3 goals for Alaska. Vermont split with New Hampshire, winning the first game in overtime with Ryan Conley scoring 2 goals over the weekend for the Wildcats, while Jax Wismer nabbed 2 assists for the Catamounts in the series split. Finally, in a standalone game on Saturday, Merrimack knocked off Northeastern 4-3 on the road, with Caden Cranston grabbing a goal and an assist for the Warriors in the win, while Dylan Riskovian earned 2 assists for the Huskies. It's not lonely at the top, so let's see how the standings shook up after this week in the Hockey East. Boston College leads the pack with 32 points, followed by Boston University in second with 28, and Maine in third with 26. UConn with 24, UMass Lowell with 22, and Merrimack with 20 follow them. Providence has 18, Northeastern has 17, Vermont has 16, UMass has 15, and New Hampshire has 13 points in conference play to round out the Hockey East. If you spent the last weekend Rocky Mountain way, you surely weren't disappointed with this weekend in the NCHC. Let's start with number 11 Arizona State splitting with number 19 Colorado College. ASU won the first 4-1 and lost the second game 5-4. Ryan Kerwan scored 2 goals and an assist for the Sun Devils over the 2 games, and Charlie Shane matched his total for the Tigers in a key NCHC series. Number 5 Denver still can't seem to put it together like they did earlier this season, splitting with Minnesota Duluth, losing 4-3 and then winning 2-1. Jack Devine scored a goal and an assist as the Pios spread the wealth on the score sheet, while Max Plant earned 1-1 as well for the Bulldogs. One last series to look into, Omaha swept number 17 St. Cloud State over the weekend, an impressive 6-3 and 3-1 wins. Zach Erdahl scored 2 for the Mavericks, and Sam Strange assisted on 3 goals in Friday night's 6-3 win. After a few surprises this weekend across the conference, let's see who's up and down in the tight top of the NCHC standings. Western Michigan holds the top spot with 30 points, but look out behind them. It's Omaha with 29 and Arizona State with 28. A slight drop off to Denver in 4th place with 20, tied with North Dakota. Minnesota Duluth has 19, tied with Colorado College. St. Cloud State has 14, and Miami, Ohio with 1 in 14 conference games played.
The Ice Level Podcast is sponsored by Best Damn Tape. Best Damn Tape's mission is to supply the most affordable and elite-level sports tape to athletes worldwide. You can go to bestdamntape.com and use code DanKShow40, that's DanKShow40, to get 40% off your order. Go to bestdamntape.com and order your clear tape, your black and white tape, scented stick wax, and more.
If you paid attention to when I mentioned BC and BU, you'd have known this was coming. It's time for a rivalry rundown with the Battle of Commonwealth Avenue. One of the most historic rivalries in college hockey was renewed this weekend. But before we go into results, let's talk history. A traditional local rivalry with both schools situated near the MBTA's Green Line, whose campuses are less than 5 miles apart, the rivalry dates back to February of 1918 and has featured legends of the game since then. Brian Jonta, Johnny Gaudreau, Brian Leach, and Thatcher Demko have all donned the maroon and gold for the Eagles in these games. Just down the street, players like Jack Eichel, Charlie McAvoy, Keith Tkachuk, and the legendary Jim Craig have all represented the red and black over the years. This year's rivalry, though, features what could be a trend for future editions, as former U.S. National Development Team teammates James Hagans and Cole Iserman faced off against each other for the first time in college colors, a massive boost for USA Hockey and college hockey's talent pool as a whole. This series is also one of the tightest rivalries I've seen in sports, as in 290 total matchups across the regular season, conference tournaments, the Bean Pot, and a few NCAA tournament meetings. Boston College leads the series with a 136, 134, and 20 record. I think the numbers speak for themselves. This year's first 2 matchups put the Eagles above 500 in the matchup, with 2 wins in an away and home game on Friday and Saturday respectively. Number 1 Boston College won Game 1 6-2 at Again's Arena, with Brian Leonard scoring a hat trick in the last 2 periods and Gabe Perreault adding 3 assists in a dominant Eagles win over the number 8 Terriers. Game 2 wasn't more of the same though, as it got tense at Conti Forum in just a 2-0 Eagles win. Teddy Stiga scored on the power play with Ryan Leonard assisting just 24 seconds in, and Jacob Fowler held on the whole game, making 30 total saves on 30 Terrier shots, including 16 in the first period. Ryan Leonard iced it for the Eagles on the other bookend of the game, sealing it 2-0 on an empty net. We certainly can't count out this game's sponges though, as Eamon Powell blocked 4 shots and Aiden Hershik blocked 6 in the return leg. If each team wins their Beanpot first round matchup, they'll meet for a third time this season on February 10th in the TD Garden. But for now, BC owns this year's edition of the series, barring any postseason matchups. After an awesome slate of ranked matchups and upsets this week, it's time to take a look at this week's USCHO Poll. Who stays, who leaves, and who enters? Boston College retains their spot at first place with 42 first place votes, followed by Michigan State with 7 first place votes, and Western Michigan with 1. Minnesota and Denver round out the top 5, with Maine, Providence, UMass Lowell, UConn, and BU rounding out the top 10. Ohio State, Arizona State, Michigan, Quinnipiac, and Minnesota State take us to 15, and North Dakota, Wisconsin, New Hampshire, Augustana, and UMass round out the top 20. Before we close it out, as always, it's time to check our Forecheck Forecast, so let's do it. Number 2 Michigan State meets number 11 Ohio State for a 2-game series at the core of the Big Ten in Columbus on Thursday and Friday night. Number 14 Quinnipiac heads to Hanover to take on Dartmouth on Friday night, and a massive matchup for the Cleary Cup in ECAC hockey. Number 8 UMass Lowell goes to Conti Forum to take on number 1 Boston College on Friday night in a standalone Hockey East game. Number 9 UConn splits a home-and-home series with number 7 Providence in another massive Hockey East series, with the tournament looming in just over a month and a half. Number 3 Western Michigan heads to Colorado Springs to take on Colorado College, with the Tigers looking to knock off the Broncos from their top spot in the conference in a weekend series. Number 16 North Dakota travels to Minnesota to take on St. Cloud State in another massive NCHC matchup as the conference's competition level stays at a season high this month. Finally, way out west, Alaska takes on Alaska Anchorage in Fairbanks in a weekend series for the Governor's Cup, as college hockey's 2 westernmost teams meet for yet another series this season. Fairbanks won the first game in overtime, and Anchorage won the second and took the shootout point in the third. The final game of the series is scheduled for February 8th, being the latest day to award the trophy and also the night the trophy is presented, no matter the series results. And that's it. Thank you all for tuning in to the first episode back. It's great to get back into the swing of things with the show and to share the greatest story played on ice with all of you. Thanks for coming down to Ice Level. I'm James Blennau, and I'm not an expert, and neither are you. But we're going to grow the game together. I'll see you next week in the next episode.